Good morning. I'd like to call the regular scheduled meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. It is now 8:30. It is April 15th, 2013. First order of business is the approval of the minutes of April 1st, 2013. Do I have a motion?
So moved?
Second.
Any additions or corrections? There none? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 2, public forum, limited to 3 minutes regarding any agenda item. Anybody wishing to address the board? I don't see any. Okay, we'll move on. Item 3, Finance Director Sheila Villano, receive monthly reports from the Finance Director. Good morning, Sheila.
Morning, Sheila. You've never been on it 1 minute after the start of the meeting.
I'm early.
No, I said, you've never been on this quickly.
Oh, I know, and I'm actually... This is a corrected page to the expenditures. It's not, it's a date correction more than anything.
Thank you. Okay, how would you like to start?
Okay, we'll start with revenue for 3/4 of the way through the fiscal year, which is very hard to believe. We've collected 98.17% of our budget as compared to 98.2% last year. So we're right on target with last year. The tax collections that were a little bit behind in February, where they were from last February, have caught up somewhat. We are at 98.94 compared to 99.4. I think we were about a percentage point below last year in February. So we are catching up. I checked to see what we collected last year between April and July. It was about $400,000. We have $816,000 left to collect this year, so we're going to have to keep an eye on that. You know, timing is not. We may still see more, you know, just because we collected $400,000 last year. I mean, we're going to see more anyway because the levy is higher, but just want to keep an eye on that.
$400,000 last year. How much were we due? I mean, we're due 800 this year. How much were we due last year? In other words, out of how much did we
That's what
collect
I'm
the
saying.
400? Oh, okay.
The timing is a part of that.
Okay.
So, but most of it's collected by the end of March anyway, so it's just, you know, the remaining uncollected piece and the interest and the back taxes.
You figuring in the tax sale that we're going to have in June?
No, because I'm only saying what we collected last year, so that, you know, there was no tax sale last year.
Mhm.
So that should help us. But
This
here
year.
again,
That won't help us till into the new fiscal year.
No,
No.
because it's now scheduled for June.
June
Oh,
19th,
okay.
it's scheduled. Okay.
Originally, we were thinking August,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
and it's June now.
Okay.
Last year, those taxpayers weren't delinquent, so we would have collected that money, so we did, you know, receive it last year.
Okay.
We'll just keep an eye on it. I just wanted to let you know that, you know, we may end up a little bit behind in taxes for the end of the year, but the other departments are doing well. The fire department ambulance revenue is actually a little bit ahead. They should be at 66.66%, and they're at 69.87. So that helps us, and, you know, all the other departments seem to be doing pretty well with the revenue.
Any questions on revenue?
No.
Okay, going to move to expenses now?
Okay, so I passed you out a second page, it's the storm expenditures, kind of reformatted it slightly differently from last month's. And I just changed a date from the report that you have in your packet. The front page of the report shows that we're at 80.8% expended compared to 81.8% last year. And that's considering all the storm expenditures. But if you back out the storm expenditures totally and just look at the normal operations, that's your second page. And that's 79.6% this year compared to 79.2% last year. So it's okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're fine.
We're on track. On the front page, you see a few departments have negative available balances, and the insurance is actually, it's showing a $7,500 deficit, but that will change next month because we need to catch up on billing the waste transfer station.
Oh, yeah.
That was kind of put a little bit on the back burner because of all the storm-related activities in our office. So we'll catch up on that. That's just billing them for their piece of the insurance. That line will show a surplus at the end of the year, the insurance. And the natural resources is short here, 24,000, but that's because of Storm Sandy. Expenditures of 52,000. That will be taken care of by the end of the year once we book the accrual. And debt service principal shows a $265,000 deficit, and that's due to just a shift in the debt service payments due to the refunding. But the interest shows a surplus, and overall we will have a $7,700 surplus if you combine the two accounts, interest and principal, due to the refunding for this fiscal year. So the negatives are nothing to worry about. It's just either cleanup, storm-related that will be, fixed with an accrual, or savings on the debt service. So we're fine there.
Any questions on expenses? Huh? Okay. You want to move to medical?
You can look at medical.
Okay. Caught up with us a little bit this month, huh?
It did, and I left the report on my desk for the, I should have that, the catastrophic claims. There are several. I know that just visualizing the report, there's several different contracts that have catastrophic levels of claims, so, that's contributing toward this. But still, we're showing
Surplus.
$121,000 surplus for the end of the year, giving us a $618,000 fund balance. So, that's very strong.
And we're running behind last year as far as expenses go.
Yes.
Yeah.
You mean what, the expenses?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the number of contracts have dropped, so that's helping us as well.
But if there's a lot of catastrophic this month, are those possibly ongoing claims that will push up the remainder of the year, or are they one-time?
No,
Can you
they're,
tell?
You've
Reaching their
reached the
max?
stop loss.
yeah, if you reach the stop loss, then it stops.
Okay.
The stop loss ends at the end of the year, and then we start over with the
Yeah.
same claim.
So you have a number of variables.
Depending on what, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
If a new claim, what's bad is if a catastrophic claim starts in like April, March or April, and then we never reach the stop loss for the year, and then it continues through next fiscal year, and then, it has to go 250,000 again.
Okay. Any more questions on medical? So, Sheila, you feel pretty comfortable we'll be okay with medical then?
Yeah.
I know you can't predict
Yeah,
the next
no,
3
but-
months,
No,
but the trend.
You can
seems-
look at the
yeah,
numbers, you
yeah.
can figure out even if all those claims reach their stop loss, where we'd be.
Yeah, if you look at the last 3 months, say, just the average there is pretty much the average of what I'm projecting going forward. So I think we're going to be very close.
Okay. Anything else you want to bring to our attention?
Well, I have the capital reports for you. There's, I know you didn't have a chance to take a look at them.
Why don't you just tell us the changes if you have?
Yeah, they're actually, there's very few changes on the town's report, which is the Fund 217.
Oh, there more than, is there just one sheet?
There's,
These are
yeah.
just 216 here, okay.
216 is the Board of Ed and 217 is the town. On the town, really the changes had to do with the shifting between a purchase order to a payment. We received 2 tractors in Public Works. They were formerly encumbered. Now you see them paid. The bulkhead, there was activity there. I think the activity that you see is actually just the purchase order that showed up this year, or this month. So, I mean, we're just making progress.
Okay. I realize the board just received this material. I would suggest, and I'm sure Sheila doesn't have any problems with this, that if you get a chance to review it, if you have any questions, to just contact her. Is that okay?
I would be happy to.
Okay. Okay. Unless you have a question now. Anybody? No? Okay, no. Thank you. Anything else?
No, I'm all set.
That's it. Thank you very much. Item 4 is our town planner, George Kroll. And I guess our health director, Dennis Johnson, is going to join him, discuss and take possible action authorizing the first selectman to issue an RFP for sewage disposal feasibility study on Pages Lane property, Town Center South. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. You discussed this several months ago in detail. I believe you have a copy of the RFP in front of you, dated July. At the time we discussed this before, we were talking about a 2-part strategy to implement the Town Center South plan. First part being the adoption of new zoning, the so-called Town Center South overlay zone. I'm happy to say the Planning and Zoning Commission approved that. It's now in effect. The second part of the Town Center South plan implementation is moving forward with the sewage disposal feasibility study for Pages Lane. And we'd like your permission to do that by authorizing the selectmen to issue the RFP. It's a 7-part or 5-part, I think, scope of work. Be happy to talk about any of that again if you would like to go over it. Dennis is also here. He's our expert in this area. We do, we're happy to answer any questions you might have about it.
Are we talking about issuing the RFP for all 5 parts or in sections?
Well, we would issue the whole RFP. We would ask them to price each section separately, and that way, if it should turn out we don't want to proceed with all of it at the same time, we would have that option, I think. I think the intent is to do all of it. It's sort of an integral piece.
So do we have an idea of what the cost will be, or we don't know?
Yes.
It's around 60,000 for the whole
Right.
one, but we're not
But I don't
appropriating.
want to say that, what if they're cheaper?
Yeah, that's right.
Well,
Right, yeah, you're right. We're
I know,
not-
I'm sorry, guys.
the
We have
actions
discussed that publicly.
Today, should we vote on this, would be not to appropriate any money, but just to go out for bid, basically. That's all that is.
Just to look and see.
Just to
I-
get information.
Exactly.
I mean, I appreciate we can't do anything forward unless we get information,
right.
so, okay.
Well, we are, I mean, we would reassure any consultants proposing this that we're serious about moving forward with it.
No, I
Right.
understand
Because we're
that,
asking them
but
to
I
do
meant, yeah.
some work related to the proposal. We would ask for price-specific proposals. We wouldn't necessarily select the lowest price. This is a qualification-based.
Yeah.
It would obviously be your decision. You would have to authorize that when we get to that point.
What is a community septic system?
Generally, that means it serves, 2 or more separate buildings. Like if you have a condominium where you have one group of 10 units in one building, and then there's a separate building where there's another 10 groups of units. They share one common septic system. It's called a community system. And those are generally regulated by the Connecticut DEP.
Who manages, or potentially would manage a system like that?
It's the condo association would manage it.
Beyond town property?
You're talking about this?
Well, this particular one here or the condo?
What you're asking them to come up with preliminary plans for?
This one here would probably, that's one thing that we'd be discussing in the RFP is how we would manage this. If it was on town property, the town WPCA would probably be responsible for managing it, and you'd probably charge a user fee to the private parties that utilize the system.
And that will be, I mean, this is a proposal to develop a plan, or potential plan and information. And that kind of information will be spelled out in.
That's, if you look at the RFP, Part 4, too, review legal and institutional arrangements necessary in order for the town to provide sewage disposal capacity and services to
But that
offset
is making the assumption that the town is providing it and managing.
No, not
My
necessarily.
question.
That's to review all the possible alternatives for developing and implementing a
So
community
the words
system.
I'm reading are, in order for the town to provide. Those are the words I'm reading, and I don't see the alternative in this. I thought we had talked about an alternative of, number one, somebody else managing, number two, selling the property, and just somebody else running it. And we had the discussion
Right,
about the
we did.
long-term cost of this, both in time, material, and probably dollars.
Yes, I think that is a possibility. For example, if it turns out that we have one user that perhaps wants to, use the entire system or most of the system, that's a possibility that they would buy it and develop it privately, but.
Is that in this
I
RFP?
think
Because
that
it
could be-
doesn't
that
appear
could
to
be
be in the
considered.
wording.
I would feel a little bit more comfortable if it was spelled out in the
We can do
RFP. I
that.
agree with
Sure, we can modify that. We don't have
Charles
any,
on that one.
we don't have any predetermined ideas as to how this will be done, although the intent is to provide sewage disposal for multiple users, not a single
And I
user.
accept that, and I understand the logic of utilizing the property for that. But my concern is that, we're turning this into a fairly innocuous economic development plan, and it could end up being a long-term sewage treatment plant, which is a whole different ballgame.
It could be, but it could also be that each property adjacent to the Pages Lane may have their own separate treatment system, and they'd be responsible for managing it. The town site might just be the receiving area where the sewage is pumped to, with no
The
maintenance.
the important words in all of the sentence are might, and that's all I'm asking for in an RFP. Let's be real upfront about it. If it's gonna be long-term, or potentially a long-term responsibility of the town, I'd like to see that, the consequences of that in the RFP.
Okay. Trace, you had that in your minutes, so, okay.
And Pam's here too, so,
Okay, she's taking notes.
yeah.
We can revise the
Okay.
RFP to make sure we cover that, that area.
If we go out and we garner this information, it has to come back to this board to, assuming it meets the cost, it has to come back to us to authorize, correct?
You're talking about it?
Awarding.
Oh,
Award
absolutely.
the bid,
yes.
No question.
And we'll have the proposal at that point.
Yes, you'll have a
Or we'll
price.
have multiple
And-
proposals, hopefully.
Right, we'll ask you at some point to create some way for us to evaluate the proposals we receive and then make a recommendation to you as to the consultant.
What do you
That could
see
be-
as the timing? Should we give you the go-ahead today? And to the time you come back to us with the proposal and with a recommendation, if you have one. You might not have one after
Right.
the first round of
I would say-
RFPs, but what do you see the timing in?
30 days?
30 days, okay, I thought it'd be longer. Okay, that's fine, that's fine.
How? 30 days to issue.
Well, we would, if we put the RFP out, I don't know how long it'll take, several days or a week to get the RFP out, give people, a week's, notice. I don't know what our requirement is, 2 weeks' notice. We'll have some proposals back within 3 weeks. We can take a week or two to evaluate them, so within that general time frame, we would have a.
In a couple
proposal-
months, yeah.
With proposals to
Do
recommend.
you have to go back to P and Z first and have
No,
them?
this
No.
is
Pam, yeah,
824.
8-24 proposal.
that would be the standing bill, not P and Z. P and Z, okay. Now, no disrespect to you gentlemen, okay?
No.
Normally, we get a commission or like standing building or another board to weigh in on putting together RFP. Can we all do this in-house, or do we have to run it by any other,
Do the RFP and.
any other board or
I think, in my opinion, we have the expertise.
Good, okay. That's what I was hoping.
Jim's been involved in this. We've discussed this with outside experts. That's how we came up with the cost estimate.
Yeah.
So we're pretty comfortable with, we know what we're doing here.
In order to ask someone to come up with a preliminary design, what number or what size capacity, where are you getting the capacity figures that, potentially will be required?
That's one of the things they'll evaluate. Yes.
Yeah, when they do the soil testing on the site, then they'll be able to determine.
Oh, okay, so how,
So it's like a
in other words, they're gonna,
So you're working back.
how big of a system could they possibly
Yeah.
fit?
Right,
So it's like a perk test.
right.
Will that be able to tell us, by size of system, I assume gallons, by gallons you calculate bedrooms, right?
Right, DEP has a formula in which they
If
can
you can
calculate
calculate
the
it back.
permeability of the soil, which determines how much sewage you can dump into the soil per acre, which converts back to number of acres times gallons per day. So you ultimately end up with a capacity based on gallons per day discharge to this site.
How will, I'm just trying to think of how would you divide that between the property owner?
That's
I
one
mean,
of
if you
the-
only have X numbers of gallons potentially, one site, in order to get maximum use of the land, might want all plus.
Absolutely, that's one of the big questions. Once we determine that we're going to build such a system, for example, how do you decide who gets to use it, at what cost? Those are all rules of operation that we're going to have to, you, or a selectman, or whoever's going to manage this whole thing once it's created, will have to do something.
Interesting. I think we gotta do this to get some answers to some questions,
I think so.
but I could see where it also could develop some questions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that goes back to my point. I mean,
Exactly.
I don't even know that I want to go forward.
My
I'm
concerns from the
uncomfortable.
last discussion, as far as I'm concerned, from listening to the plan of conservation development and all that, doing anything south of the railroad with one exit in and out, I just find unfathomable. But, I guess I could support this because it's gonna give us some answers. But from listening to those different things from Nature Conservancy and the rest of it, to be building a septic system down there, I can't even believe we're going forward with it.
The
But
problem is if you don't, then we can't do any development.
That's right.
So, I mean,
south of the railroad,
I know.
you're right. I mean,
I
that's what
know,
they've been
but-
telling us right along.
But
they're not.
Conversely, don't you, isn't it conceivable that there are existing enterprises, the two restaurants, other businesses
Could
that
really
it may-
benefit from
that's-
this.
It may
That's
just
why I
benefit
say-
from that. Even if there is no additional development, it may be
Sustain what's
feasible to
there.
have the yacht club and others participate in this kind of a
And we've
system.
gotten one side of the equation, this hopefully will give us
Right.
the other side of the equation. And that's why I could support getting some answers and just seeing how real the other conversation was.
and you all bring up very interesting points, and then raises the question, in the RFP, we ask whoever is awarded the bid to address sea level rise?
Yeah, it's right.
Item 1.6.
Yeah.
It
It's
says
right there, yeah.
vulnerability
Okay, just want to
problems.
make sure that
Absolutely.
that's brought out. that we do
Absolutely.
that.
That
That's
we-
one of the major questions.
Okay, so if they
Maybe
say,
the major
yeah, it's a nice
question.
place to do it, but in 10 years it'll be on the
Karen
water,
brings
forget
up-
about it.
I-
I'm
this
being
is-
facetious, but,
No,
It's
maybe
probably-
the major question.
yeah.
This is probably not, for when we get the information back, it's probably a question over there, but Gary brings up an interesting point. If they say, okay, we can build something there, okay, but not enough to support any future development, but the people that are, or businesses and/or people that are existing there need it to go forward, or to continue in business, how do we assess that?
That's the,
and we could
that's your
decide if the
question.
cost benefit
I
analysis.
think you gotta wait for the
Charlie.
report.
You gotta find out what.
In other
what
words,
can
they
we
would
create
have to
here.
either buy into a public system or go out of business if they potentially needed more septic.
Or renovate on their own sites with mounded systems, or lots of. That's why we gotta get subject, or in some way. We have a project, as you know, with the Nature Conservancy in Yale that we're gonna be addressing exactly this question, not just for here, but everywhere on the shoreline. One of the major questions, what do people do with sewage disposal systems in areas that are prone to flooding now and where maybe
worth the investment, not only from this perspective, but just for Townsend.
Absolutely, and the debates well, you heard the debate that Planning and Zoning Commission had about the question of encouraging development in an area that we know there are storms. On the other hand, we also know there's a huge base of assets in our community south of the railroad tracks. That's where people want to live.
Yeah.
And
they are living.
They're living there now, and they're investing money in real estate. It's very much a dilemma that we have to face as a community.
Well, the railroad, too. I mean, we're assuming the railroad will be a greater source of transportation.
Absolutely, that's the whole premise of Town Center South. They have a huge national investment in rail transportation. That's, so many feet above sea level.
Hopefully we'll get some answers and not just more questions.
Want to make a motion?
Just back
Gary,
to
question.
the question that was raised before about who is reviewing the RFPs. You may want to think about not a permanent group, but a temporary group, which may include a member of P&Z, which may include a member of the WPCA, may include a member of this board or whatever, to just sort of review what's happening so that those entities are sort of kind of up to speed on the thought process, because this is going to be very complicated, I think. So
Good idea.
I don't want a permanent commission on this.
We don't have like a town hall.
But maybe a liaison from a couple or three boards.
Not
would be
anymore.
appropriate.
It was
Yeah,
one.
there was. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Before we write the RFP.
No, to
Afterwards.
review it. But, maybe we think about a liaison from
I think
whatever's
I
appropriate.
think that's an excellent idea, and
Fairly
I'll talk
informal.
with staff.
Yes.
Informal, ad hoc sort of group.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's a great idea. Okay, you're going to make a motion?
I'll move that we approve the RFP process as prepared and as additional suggestions made by Selectman Havertide.
Second?
Any further discussion? There's a motion on the table. Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. And, George, Dennis, we can sit down later in the
Yeah,
week
we can
and
talk about
talk about
committee or whatever it's going to be.
a ad hoc committee. I think it's a great idea. Item 5, consider and take possible action to set the annual town meeting date of May 13th, 2013, 7 p.m. at the town hall to receive reports from various commissions. This is required by charter, and you'll see you have a notice of the annual town meeting in your packet. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Only that, Tracy, having been chair of these commissions, a reminder to the commission chairs. I just, when you're working full-time and you're on a couple of commissions, and then you have this obligation to turn the report in, it's like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? Okay.
It's not one of our favorite tasks, is it, Tracy?
Well, it's not the commission chair's favorite task
No, I know
either.
that. Well, the next charter revision, we got to think about this.
Well, having been on that side, I will say, though, it's a good exercise for the
Yes,
commission
it is.
chair to sit down and actually summarize what they've done for the year. It's just a time commitment. It's an additional time commitment for people that are usually pretty busy.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. No further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 6, we have 6.1, 6.4, which is the request for the use of town property. Anybody want to make a motion?
I would move that we approve the 1 use and 3 sign requests for use of town property.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Item 7, correspondence. We have the building officials' monthly report.
A lot of activity. It's good.
Yes, Bill is keeping quite busy. And I guess we're still putting in generators.
Yeah.
And we also have the Public Works report, which, talking about people and departments being busy, they've been quite busy. Questions, we'll move along. Any committee reports? Okay. old business? Any old business? Any new business? Public forum, I don't see anybody wishing to address the board. Item 12, discussion of a pending claim. We will go into executive session. I'm going to invite our in-house counsel / purchasing manager and the finance director if she chooses to attend. Do I have a motion?
So moved, and then.
Before we vote on it, is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay, Gary, you got something to say?
Yeah, due to a potential conflict that I could have in this discussion, I'm recusing myself and leaving the discussion and not participating, so.
You can,
Have a good day.
you're not going to vote to go to executive session, you're going to abstain?
I don't have a problem with going to executive
Okay.
session, I just know I'm not staying.
I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. You vote for it?
I'll vote for
Thank
going to
you. All
executive
right.
session.
And you're leaving.
Have a good day,
I've got to keep
everybody.
it straight.
Have a good day.
Okay. We will not be coming back for a vote, Mike. Okay. This is just for information purposes.